Now, although RAM prices have been getting very expensive, the Raspberry Pi remains a popular small computer. And although I released a video showing how to install PiOS, it's been quite a while. The installation process is still easy to follow, but a lot has changed, and I think it's worth revisiting the Pi imager. So, how do you install an operating system like PiOS on a Raspberry Pi? And what are the other options available? Well, if that's something that you're interested in finding out, then stick around and watch this video, as that's what we'll be going over. You can still download the Raspberry Pi imager from the same website as before, so raspberrypi.com/software. The only thing I've noticed that's different here is it no longer refers to Ubuntu. Instead, it refers to Linux in general. And what you download for Linux is an app image file. Now, once you download the software, regardless of the operating system, the installation is so easy that it's not worth covering it. I mean, in the case of Linux here, for instance, you'll download a standalone file, you'll give that executable rights, and then you'll run it with elevated privileges. Now, I'm going to assume that your computer can access microSD cards directly, or it's connected to a hub that can. Although one thing I'll point out is that if your computer can only access SD cards, you can actually get an adapter that'll help. Although usually you do get one when you actually buy a microSD card. Now, first thing you should do is to actually install that microSD card into your computer. Although if at any time you see a dialog box pop up asking if you want to format it, you may as well just click cancel, because we're going to be overriding it anyway. So now what you'll want to do is to actually run the imaging software, as you'll see here. And first thing is you'll be prompted to actually pick the hardware version of your Pi that you're going to be setting this operating system up for. And there's quite a few to choose from, as you can see. If memory serves, in the original one, there wasn't really much choice about the hardware. It was more about what software you want. But in any case, you pick the actual hardware that you want and then click on next. Now this time around, there are just so many choices available, and I mean, there's a lot. I mean, you'll see the typical desktop versions of Pi OS, but if you scroll down a bit, you'll see a Raspberry Pi OS Other. If you click that, and there are a few choices here as well, but crucially, this is where you typically choose the light version up here, which has no desktop at all, and that's a lot better for a headless Pi. Now, one thing I'd suggest is if you change your mind and you want to go back and pick something else, don't click back. It literally takes you right back to the main device here. So I would just click OS instead, just follow the left-hand pane. Now, further down, what we'll see is another choice of OS, which is Other General Purpose OS. So if you click that, you'll now see we've got choices going all the way from Ubuntu here at the top, all the way down to Diet Pi. If we then come back again, we've got a choice for Media Player OS, which probably makes sense if you want to be setting up some sort of like music center, I suppose. But clicking on that, you can see we've got everything from Libre Elec all the way down to Pi Core Player. Further down, you'll see we've got a choice for Emulation and Game OS. Click on that, got a choice of RetroPie and Recall Box. Further down still, we've got Other Specific Purpose OS. And clicking that, you can see we've got everything from Falcon Player right up the top here, all the way down to Lola OS here at the bottom. Go back again, and then we've got an option for Premium and Paid for OS, where we've got a choice of Digital Signage OS, going all the way down to Homey Self-Hosted Server. Looking for something completely different? Well, if you go even further, we've got miscellaneous utility images. You've got a bootloader option, as well as a multi-boot OS installer. And select that, and then we've got options in there. Whereas if we pick that, we've got options in there. Then we've got an option lower down to actually just erase the actual card if you want. And then last but by no means least, you've got the option to actually import a custom image. Now for this example, what we're going to be doing is to use the Raspberry Pi Lite. So I'm going to go to here and then select the 64-bit version. And then once you've decided what operating system to use, click on Next. So now what we've got to do is to actually pick the actual storage. Now, fortunately, this app is plug and play. So even if you do plug the SD card in now, it will still show up in the list. And sensibly, as you can see down here, the actual system drives are excluded by default. So it's a matter of picking the actual card that you want to install the operating system onto, and then clicking Next. Now, as ever, you'll need to provide a unique host name. So enter one there, then click on Next. Here you'll enter in the localization details that apply to you, and then click on Next. Now you'll need to put in the username and password here. Now, bear in mind it does warn you lower down that the username has to be in lowercase, and it can only contain letters, numbers, underscores, and hyphens. In other words, you can't have special characters here. So I'm just going to put in a password here. And then we'll click on Next. Now, there is then a choice of using a secure Wi-Fi and an open Wi-Fi. The only difference being that with an open Wi-Fi, there isn't a password. All you need to do for that is to enter the SSID. Whereas for a secure one, you'll need to fill in the SSID plus the password, and you'll have to confirm that here. Now, if the SSID is being hidden by your router, or Wi-Fi access point, then you want to make sure to select that option to tell it that it's dealing with a hidden SSID. Now, one thing to point out is that there isn't an option here for an Ethernet network. So if you're going to be plugging this into an actual physical switch, then as with the Wi-Fi here, you're going to be relying on a DHCP server to provide an IP address and mask, a DNS server, and also a default gateway. Now, regardless of what you do here with the Wi-Fi, in my case, I'm going to be plugging it into a network switch. You'll want to click on Next. Now, remote access to the Pi typically involves using SSH. And you can see here, we've got it enabled to allow us to get remote access to the SSH server that will be installed on the Pi. Now, there is a choice of password authentication or public key authentication. And I would suggest using this because it's a lot more secure. But if you choose to use password authentication, then when you log in, you'll have to supply the password of the user that you created earlier. In the case of public key authentication, you need to supply the public key here for that user. So this is the public key that's part of a private public key pair that you'll have had to create earlier. Now, as well as typing that in or pasting it in, you can also browse to a file and import that if you particularly choose to. Now, how you actually set up key pairs is really outside the scope of this video, because this is all just about how to install an operating system onto a Raspberry Pi using this Pi Imager. But I do actually have some videos which show you how you can do that for Linux, as well as how you can do that for Windows if that's something that you're interested in. But in any case, once you've made your choice, click on Next. Now, interestingly, we now have an option called Raspberry Pi Connect when you install PiOS. Now, this is a cloud service that will let you access a Pi from anywhere over the internet, although you do have to pay a subscription for it. Now, aside from the actual fee, Personally, I just don't trust cloud services like this because when it comes to hacking, it's usually a matter of when, not if. So this is something to bear in mind, is that then potentially somebody could have remote control of your Pi on your local network from anywhere in the world and could then use that to try to get access to other devices on your local network. And for that reason, it sounds good in theory, but it's just never going to happen. But anyway, whatever choice you make here, click next. And then here you can review your choices if you like. Now, bear in mind there is an app options in the lower left that you might want to check out. So this is going to let you decide if you want to hear a sound when the actual card is ready. If you want to eject the media at the end as well, you can choose or decide not to send telemetry information to the developer. You also get the option to disable any warnings that might show up. And there's also an option here for content repository. Now, this to me makes more sense probably for customized installations, because you can actually set the source as being a custom file or a custom URL. But regardless of your options, you're going to have to click right to then format and install the operating system onto your SD card. There's a bit of a delay there, and then it asks you to actually confirm that you actually want to write to the card, because it's a one-way trip here. It's going to erase that and then overwrite whatever you've got. And then we just need to sit back and wait for it to complete. Now that the actual installation is finished, in my case, the actual SD card has been automatically ejected. You can actually, if you want, click on finish to close this down, or you've also got another option to write another SD card if you so choose. Either way, what you'll want to do with that SD card is literally remove it from your computer, and then you can use it for your Raspberry Pi. With the card now ready, you can remove it from your PC, install it into the Pi, and then power it on. Leave it for maybe 5 minutes to fully boot up, and then at some point it will get an IP address from your DHCP server, and then you'll typically want to know what that is in order to log into the Pi, as I've done here. Now, if you connect the monitor to the Pi, then with PiOS at least, you'll see that the IP address is displayed at the login prompt. Alternatively, you could check your DHCP server to see what IP address gets leased, or you could log in locally, and then you could run a command like this one here, IP-BR ADDR, to actually display the IP address. I mean, I'm just using that brief option just to make it a bit easier to see things, because all we're interested really in is the IP address that's being leased, rather than all the other information that you'd usually get if you just run IP-ADDR. And then it's a matter of connecting into your Pi using SSH. So, for example, I could use SSH Pi test at 192.168.1.150, where Pi test is the user name that I actually used when I set up the operating system. And then there's the IP address at the end. But having said that, if you're logging in from a computer on the same network, then you might be able to use the local domain option instead. So for example, in this case, SSH PyTest at pytest.local. Yeah, a lot of thought went into this. The user account is PyTest and the actual computer's called PyTest, but it's that .local at the end that's the significant part. Very useful, as I say, if you've got a computer on the same network. Now, reserving an IP address for the Pi in the DHCP server makes a lot of sense if your firewall restricts outbound access, for instance. The alternative is to create a static IP address on the Pi, and how you do that's really going to depend on the operating system that you've installed on it. But either way, if you have a local DNS server, then you'll want to update that so that you can access the Pi using an FQDN going forward. The last thing to do is to update the operating system and all the packages that you've got, just to make sure that everything is up to date. Now, PiOS is based on Debian, So as it uses the apt package manager, we can do that by running the following. So sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y. And then off it goes and updates itself. Now, bear in mind this can take quite a while, especially on like a Pi 0W, for example. But once it's done, you'll want to reboot the computer for all this to take effect. Now, I would strongly suggest installing a firewall like UFW to lock down remote access to the Pi. And I do have another video on how to install and configure UFW. But in any case, you now have a Pi running Pi OS in this particular example, and it's really down to you to decide what you actually want to do with it. Now then, I wonder what the next video should be. I mean, that could be interesting. I thought nobody watched a video till the end. Well, I mean, never mind. I mean, while you're here, feel free to click the subscribe button if you can be bothered. It's better than trying to search for videos on a topic these days. And while you're at it, the algorithm could do with feeding. You know, click the like button. Might even help someone else looking for videos like this one. Anyway, there's some funny videos out there about cats and dogs that you might want to check out next. Oh yeah, the next video. Maybe that one instead. Are you still here? Well, if you've run out of good causes to donate to, I mean, feel free to donate to this channel. I mean, I'll leave the links in a pinned comment. You can make a one-off donation. There's ad-free viewing on Patreon, and lab members even get access to advanced viewing and exclusive content. Now, where was I? Oh yeah. How on earth did that cat manage to fit in there?